The PS2 era wasn't obsessed with realism. It wasn't trying to chase ultra-high resolution faces or lifelike lighting, mostly because there was a hardware power budget. Instead, developers focused on that intangible feeling through bold art direction, unforgettable animation, and worlds that hit you right in the imagination. These games didn't need photorealism to be beautiful. They used stylized characters and textures and creative world design to create aesthetics that still hold up remarkably well today. Simply put, the PS2 proved that intelligent art direction ages like fine wine, while photoreal graphics grow old fast. If you end up liking the content, please subscribe for more, and I'd appreciate it if you give it a thumbs up and tell me what you think down below. Love to hear it.
My leave. I shall be back.
Odin Sphere treats every screen like a gallery display. The entire game feels like an attempt to reimagine classical art as action, merging storybook elegance with a rich, painterly art style and animation that flows like stage choreography. Characters move with sweeping arcs and emotionally charged body language, every strike accented with swirling magic effects. Even enemies look like Baroque paintings twisted into mythic beasts, dramatic silhouettes, ornate costumes, and glowing eyes that feel almost theatrical. The visual storytelling is impossible to ignore. Melancholic color palettes define entire kingdoms, with each chapter tied to a protagonist whose tragedy mixes with their environment's mood. Snowy wastelands feel cold beyond temperature. Fiery underworlds pulse with dread. The screen is always filled. Particle effects, detailed sprites, background movement. A deliberate overstimulation that transforms battles into visual storms. But this beauty carried visible weight on the PS2 hardware. The original version struggled with performance, slowing during intense scenes. Level repetition frustrated players and sometimes undermined pacing. Retreading maps with new characters stretched the elegance thin. Inventory management was clunky. It is a game where the art outgrew the machine. Then again, that's its charm. Odin Sphere aimed too high and somehow hit the mark anyway. Even with imperfections, the PS2 version radiates craftsmanship that modern HD editions only emphasize. While realism-focused games age into uncanny awkwardness, Odin Sphere remains a moving painting, a timeless reminder that artistry isn't measured in polygons. Dark Cloud 2 is the kind of game where art direction does the heavy lifting and lifts way above what the PS2 should have been able to handle. Its bright cel-shaded surfaces, rounded character designs, and watercolor-inspired textures form a world that still looks crisp today. The environments burst with personality. Sun-drenched beaches where every wave sparkles, dreamy nighttime towns full of glowing lanterns, and lush forests painted with soft colors instead of gritty realism. There's sincerity in every visual detail, a childlike wonder polished with artistic maturity. The animation style is just as charming. Characters bounce with life, swing oversized weapons in playful arcs, and attack with particles that feel like confetti-filled magic. Cutscenes capture expressions beautifully, eyes widening, poses exaggerating, like a 3D Studio Ghibli adventure. Even side mechanics are soaked in style. Taking photographs, crafting silly inventions, building towns piece by piece. The visuals aren't just decoration, they're gameplay motivation. But it's also a beast of systems. Dungeon runs can get repetitive, procedural layouts aren't as imaginative as the overworld, and difficulty increases can push players into grinding. The story, while heartfelt, sometimes gets overshadowed by mechanics stacking endlessly on top of each other. Diorama city building, weapon evolution, photography, golf-like mini-games, monster transformations. It's a lot. Not all of it hits equally well. Yet this kitchen sink approach adds personality to the experience. The variety means the art extends through everything. New weapons change how characters look and fight. Rebuilt towns visually evolve, and even enemies have cartoonish flair that makes them memorable. Dark Cloud 2 doesn't chase fidelity. It chases delight and wins. It's proof that art direction driven by imagination outlasts any pixel count race. Valkyrie Profile 2 Silmeria is the kind of game that makes you pause not because you're stuck, but because you just want to look at everything for a moment longer. Tri-Ace visual design mixes shimmering realism with mythic fantasy in a way that feels cold, haunting, and divine all at once. Characters move through richly detailed, Norse-inspired cities and ruins, with lighting that paints stone walls and snowy hillsides in soft, ethereal glow. It doesn't feel like a PS2 game trying to look realistic. It feels like a PS2 game trying to look beautiful on its own terms and succeeding beyond reason. Combat visuals are equally striking. Spells erupt in crystalline bursts. Weapons leave trails of energy, and characters animate with a precision that makes every attack feel weighty. The series' signature side-scrolling exploration creates dramatic compositions, silhouettes against sunsets, moonlight streaking through cathedral windows, imagery that feels meticulously framed like fantasy artwork. Even enemies look sculpted rather than textured over low-poly shapes. But like many Tri-Ace titles, the complexity can be overwhelming. Systems stack on systems, gears shifting, elemental resistances, positioning puzzles, combos that require planning down to the pixel. It's stylish, yes, but demanding. Some players bounced off the opaque mechanics and difficulty spikes that appear without warning. The story, rich in mythology, occasionally gets buried under the weight of messaging windows and tutorial text dumps. Yet those quirks become part of the charm for people who love it. Valkyrie Profile 2 shows that style isn't just about pretty colors, it's about mood. Each location feels touched by gods and fate. Each battle looks like the clash of warriors destined for glory. It proves art direction can turn a video game into a cold and majestic legend carved into memory.
This is for that bread you took the other day.
Final Fantasy XII is one of the most ambitious visual showcases the PS2 ever pulled off, and part of that is because it didn't chase realism so much as believability. Ivalice feels like a genuine place, with its bustling markets, worn stone walls, and towering airships casting shadows over political struggles far bigger than any one hero. The designers leaned into a weathered texture approach that makes the visuals feel grounded, giving the world a lived-in weight that games more than twice as graphically powerful still fumble with. The art direction elevates even the smallest NPC. Their clothes, races, and mannerisms suggest entire cultures not even mentioned in dialogue. Style here comes from world building as visual storytelling. But where 12 truly flexed style over graphical fidelity was combat animation and battlefield presentation. Characters glide into seamless battles without cuts, and each spell paints the screen with controlled spectacle, like the gleaming blades, flowing capes, and elegant movement instead of stiff, canned poses. The Gambit system backed that up, creating programmable teamwork that made the action look choreographed, like a fight director planned every motion. Some hated it, calling it auto-battling, but it was a daring experiment, empowering players to be tacticians rather than button mashers. Narratively, the pseudo-mature political tone turned off fans expecting melodramatic romance or a chosen one prophecy. Vaughn being more spectator than protagonist felt odd at the time. But now, many appreciate that the story trusts players to follow complex power dynamics instead of spoon-fed drama. The judge designs, the floating elegance of Arcadian architecture, the mythical landscapes, it's all art direction carrying the weight, not raw hardware. Final Fantasy XII has aged beautifully because it focuses on cohesive style, thoughtful culture, and sweeping presentation. It's not the Final Fantasy that's the most adored, but it definitely managed to feel distinct.
Oh, Miguelo had some errands.
The devs for Dragon Quest VIII approached graphics with pure sincerity. Where other RPGs chased darker tones or technical tricks, this game doubled down on bright colors, whimsical animation, and a bold cel-shaded look that makes it feel like an Akira Toriyama manga you can walk around in. The PS2 hardware wasn't built for expansive, seamless worlds. Yet DQ8 delivered sweeping landscapes with clean lines, rich hues, and gentle lighting that still stand out today, even though they're not complex. But that's because it's charming. Character animation is where the game's personality explodes. Monsters taunt, dance, wobble, and smirk with exaggerated life, turning random encounters into tiny performances. Heroes strike poses straight out of a classic adventure anime. The menu icons, item designs, villages, and UI elements, everything supports the same playful, theatrical aesthetic. There's no visual confusion, no gritty realism, just pure fantasy. But for all that warmth, this isn't flawless. The pacing can crawl if you aren't ready for old-school grinding, and the story structure repeats certain beats a little too proudly. While voice acting adds depth, some players felt the story's tone was too safe or predictable. Yet these weaknesses are exactly why the style ages better than many contemporaries. It's timeless on purpose. It didn't chase trends. It refines tradition until it feels iconic. Even today, fans return not because of cutting-edge tech, but because stepping into its world feels good. It's comfort food philosophy, confident, consistent, and beautifully drawn. The PS2 could never mimic realism perfectly, so Dragon Quest VIII didn't bother. It aimed for imagination over accuracy, and that's why it still shines. Xenosaga Episode 3 feels like a swan song, not just for the trilogy, but for a certain era of artistic ambition in JRPGs. Leaning heavily into clean sci-fi aesthetics, it blends smooth armor plating, white sterile corridors, shimmering holograms, and ominously beautiful cosmic vistas. Facial animation is a night and day improvement over episodes 1 and 2, with expressions that actually enhance the emotional weight. Characters are stylized, not realistic, but they're full of believable presence, especially in cinematic moments where eyes and body language communicate more than the script. Battle effects look striking without drowning in noise. Ethereal wings, flashing blades, sleek mech transformations. The game knows where to direct your attention. The cutscenes, and there are many, are framed like a deliberate visual drama, full of slow camera sweeps and symbolic imagery that feels closer to anime filmmaking than typical game storytelling. But this also comes with complications. The budget clearly wasn't what Episode 1 had, and much of the narrative was rushed to resolution. Locations can feel limited, reused assets pop up frequently, and the grand philosophical narrative shrinks faster than fans wanted. The style holds the weight of a story trying to finish 3 games of lore in one sprint. Visually elegant, but betraying the scars of production constraints. And still, it's stunning. Its designs lean on thematic clarity, clean lines for advanced technology, darker palettes for existential despair, religious motifs woven into everything. Where Episode 2 stumbled visually with awkward redesigns, Episode 3 regains harmony and identity. Its art direction communicates faith, fear, and the fragility of the human soul against cosmic mystery. This isn't about graphical horsepower. It's about how visuals feel purposeful, confident, emotionally tuned. Xenosaga Episode 3 proves style can save even the most pressured ending, leaving players with images they remember long after the credits roll. Okami isn't just stylish. It's a work of cultural art repurposed into a video game. Clover Studio chose to recreate the visual language of classical Japanese ink painting, turning every line and brush stroke into a character of its own. Instead of realistic textures, landscapes look like living scrolls. Trees swirl with hand-painted charm. Mountains appear like black ink silhouettes against pastel skies, and rivers ripple with sharp brush lines that feel intentionally imperfect, a celebration of art rather than imitation of nature. Playing as Amaterasu means the art literally comes from the player's hand. The celestial brush system doesn't just look stylish. It is a stylish mechanic. painting sunrises into existence, slicing through demons with a sweeping line, restoring beauty to cursed lands in pure visual transformation. Animation sells personality at every turn. The wolf's playful hops, villagers' comedic exaggerations, enemies that deform and splatter like calligraphy brought to life. Nothing in Okami is stiff. Everything dances. Yet, it wasn't universally praised at launch. Reviews loved the visuals, but pacing criticism dominated. Too many text interruptions, tutorial reminders, and late-game padding stretched the experience well past its welcome for some. Combat isn't as deep as its looks suggest, making repetition noticeable across long sessions. But even with those flaws, this aged like mythology itself. No shader technology or polygon race can compete with pure art direction supported by strong thematic identity. It's serene yet playful, epic yet intimate. On PS2 hardware, it created vistas that feel more alive than many modern titles with 50 times the processing power. Okami proves that style isn't a mask, it's the soul of the experience. Shadow of the Colossus is the greatest argument ever made that minimalism can be incredibly breathtaking. Where other games cram their worlds with clutter, this one gives you sweeping emptiness. Ancient plains, wind-carved cliffs, fog-drowned temples, and tells your imagination to fill in the rest. That's the style, a forgotten land where silence is the artwork. Every blade of grass and ruined statue isn't striving for realism, it's creating a tone. A mood of lonely beauty that lingers long after the console is off. The colossi themselves are masterworks of visual design. Part creature, part mountain, part myth. Their fur ripples in the wind. Stone muscles grind against gravity. Eyes glow with intelligence or sadness depending on how you look at them. Clinging onto their massive frames as dust and sparks fly is a spectacle more emotionally powerful than most cutscenes. Not because it's flashy, but because it's ancient, elemental drama painted onto beings constructed like moving shrines. But even masterpieces have imperfections. The PS2 version struggles with frame rate drops, and the controls, beautifully cinematic in intention, can feel stubborn and heavy in practice. Animations are so committed to realism that sometimes you fight the physics as much as the Colossus. And for players craving a traditional RPG loop, there isn't one. No towns, no side quests, no loot. Just you, a horse, a sword, and a moral weight that gets heavier every victory. Shadow of the Colossus refused to be loud. It's a quiet punch to the chest, a reminder that style isn't decoration, but a medium to convey emotion. And few games have ever used visual storytelling to say more with less. Rogue Galaxy is the definition of biting off more than you can chew, but doing it with so much style that players forgive almost everything. They create environments that felt more like color-soaked sci-fi, playgrounds spanning multiple planets, each with its own cultural flair and atmosphere. Cel-shaded characters look vibrant and bold, popping against detailed backdrops with anime energy that feels ripped from a Saturday morning space opera. And everything is sprinkled with glowing accents, shifting lights, and massive starships that make the world feel infinitely big. The action-based combat system cranked up the visual appeal. Fast movement, bright effects, flashy sword swings, and a smooth party swap mechanic that keeps the screen alive. Even standard enemies feel like quirky alien designs instead of cannon fodder. The weapon fusion system and factory side quest add layers of presentation. Custom gear visually evolves, and crafting literally happens on a machine that looks like a puzzle designed by a stylish engineer. But ambition has a cost. Rogue Galaxy's dungeons are huge, sometimes to the point of fatigue. There's asset reuse and fights that feel too long. Difficulty jumps force grinding when you want story. The narrative is charming but predictable, a pulp adventure checklist rather than anything subversive. Still, what made it unforgettable wasn't perfection. it was confidence. It believed that artistic enthusiasm could overpower limitations, and for the most part, it did. Rogue Galaxy still feels fresh because it never tried to be realistic. It tried to be weirdly cool. And that doesn't age. While most JRPGs chase beauty through colorful worlds and flashy powers, Nocturne takes the opposite route. Stark geometry, cold neon glow, surreal architecture, and character designs that feel more symbolic than human. It's stylish in a way that's unsettling. The post-apocalyptic Tokyo is stripped down to shapes and smooth surfaces, lit like a demonic art museum. Every hallway, intersection, and rooftop carries tension in its emptiness, a world pushed past tragedy and into eerie aesthetic clarity. The demon designs are iconic to the point of legend. Sharp silhouettes, bold colors, glowing eyes, myth and nightmare fused into modern symbolism. Even protagonist animations, running, breathing, the way he charges up a spell, are deliberate and fierce. The turn-based press-turn system turns battles into visual rhythm, where a single crit triggers a cascade of spinning icons and brutal momentum shifts that feel like a stylish combo system inside a menu-driven game. Of course, there are friction points. Difficulty is unapologetic. A single mistake can mean a complete restart. Navigation leans on abstract design instead of convenience, occasionally frustrating players who expect comforting flow. And the story's philosophical depth can feel cold if you're looking for standard JRPG warmth. Nocturne asks you to think about existence while fighting demons that represent belief systems, not exactly popcorn fantasy. Yet that is what makes its style so powerful. It commits. Every visual choice serves the theme: isolation, transformation, and the beauty of a world reborn through chaos. Nocturne isn't pretty. It's hypnotically stylish, the kind of experience burned in a memory like a vivid dream you can't forget.